Well, I would like to pass on some information about the history of the trees. Well, why is that? Well, because many people move house during their lifetime 2 or 3 times, and they may move, but the garden, which when you move, um, has already got an history. And in that garden, therefore, there may be fruit trees and there may be ornamental trees. And so often I get the question asked, can you come have a look at my fruit trees in my garden? Because I have no idea where they are. In fact, the question should arise, the apple trees in any garden in the UK, is the apple tree really, and are apples really an English fruit? And the answer to that is no. Originally, the apples come from Asia. In fact, an old Soviet republic called Kazakhstan. And in Kazakhstan, which is more or less southwest of Mongolia and south of China, there is a mountain range called the Tian Shan mountain range. And just near that mountain range, there is a town called Almaty or Almaty, Almaty. Now, in that mountain range, there is what it is called the fruit forest. It is half in China and it is half in Kazakhstan. In fact, it has been applied for to be a site where no changes further are made, as it is unique and can never be shown again, and therefore needs to be protected. Now that's in Kazakhstan. The apples which are grown there have been there since 3,500 years ago. And you may say, well, how do you know that the apple tree in my garden is related to that? And that is because over the last 10, 20 years, a complete DNA analysis of the apples grown in the Tin Shan mountain range and the apples grown in the UK in the gardens has been carried out. And the entire genome has been sequenced. And the result of that is that the genetic profile of the apples grown in your garden is exactly the same as the one which has been grown for 3,500 years in the Tian Shan mountain range. So often on the market, as well as people who are interested in fruit, they say, oh, those apples are really too big, they've been messed about with. In fact, there has been no genetical modification in apples at all. In fact, apples are not suitable for genetical modification. So the size range of apples is the same as it's been for thousands of years. How do we know for sure it has been that long, that they have been known for that long? And that is because there's plenty of evidence that in Babylon, fruit trees were already successfully grafted 3,500 years ago. And it was because it was such a convenient food with a high nutritional value. In fact, if you take the old Bible story, which is more than 2,000 years old, Eve tempted Adam with an apple. Babylon is not far removed from the Tian Shan range. Now, how did the apples arrive so far away from Asia, where the original apple trees grow? And that is because, no doubt you know about the silk routes, which is the routes which the traders used from east to west to sell the silk and other special materials which we didn't have in the West at that time. But they had to take food, and they chose the routes over the higher mountains so that it was easier for them to stay cool. But what they did also, and that has been found by various researchers, they also took apples in the side saddles of the horses. Now the apples were then dried, and then dried apple has not lost its nutritional value. So those apples arrived, seed and all, in the West, and they threw them overboard, or if that was by sea, because there was also a sea route going to the West, or they threw them on the land, and so apple trees started to grow from the seeds. And so, since the trading routes were started many thousands of years ago, gradually the apples were introduced first in Greece, then to Rome. And so it was then with the Roman Empire extending to Great Britain, and they wanted Great Britain to be part of the Roman Empire because the Romans were short of food, also the apple arrived. In fact, in Ireland, they have found the remains of an apple tree which is in excess of 2,200 years old. And so there is a beautiful book published now by two people, one called Barry Juniper and the other one is called David Mapley, who were researchers at St. Catherine's College at Oxford University. And they published a book called The Story of the Apple. So if you're interested in the detail of how the apples arrived in the UK after so many years and since the Roman Empire, I can highly recommend it. Thank you for listening.